Obviously, you won't be joining us for Mother's Day brunch tomorrow." Bethany's voice carried that surgical precision I'd learned to recognize, each word selected to inflict maximum damage while maintaining plausible deniability. "Donovan and I are celebrating the women who've actually earned a place in our family, not the ones trying to control it." She stood in my doorway without stepping inside. Professional courtesy, she'd probably call it. A cardboard box sat in her perfectly manicured hands. Those same hands had touched my husband during our 38th anniversary year. Now they controlled my son so completely I hadn't heard his voice in 8 months. My chest tightened like someone had wrapped steel bands around my ribs. I couldn't breathe properly, couldn't speak. The box landed in my arms before I could react. "These were taking up space at our house," Bethany said. "Our house, where my son lived, where I was no longer welcome." The box felt heavier than it should. I set it down on the coffee table Edmund had refinished 20 years ago. My hands trembled. The cardboard was worn at the corners, hastily packed. I pulled back the flaps. My grandmother's cookbook, the one with her handwritten notes in the margins, Donovan's childhood photos in mismatched frames, a ceramic mug I'd given him for his 16th birthday with "World's Best Son" fading on the side, discarded, erased, returned like unwanted mail. 8 months of silence. 8 months since he'd answered my calls. 8 months since Bethany had systematically severed every connection between us, and I'd been too paralyzed by grief and confusion to fight back. My throat closed. I picked up a photo of Donovan at 7, gap-toothed and laughing. When had I lost him? When had he stopped being mine and become hers? The answer whispered through my memory. 4 years ago. The day Edmund collapsed in our kitchen, gasping words I couldn't understand then, words that haunted me now. The green powder, Ruth. Don't. Then silence. Permanent. Devastating. Bethany had been at Edmund's funeral. I remembered her standing at his casket, too close, whispering something I couldn't hear. At the time, I'd been drowning in shock. Now that memory surfaced with new significance. She'd been performing grief, possessive, strange. Have you ever stood in your own doorway feeling erased from your child's life? Drop yes in the comments if you've felt invisible to someone you raised. If this story is already pulling at you, hit subscribe. You'll want to see how this ends. And tell me in the comments, have you ever been cut off by family? What did you do? 4 years earlier, April 2020. Seattle's spring rain drummed against the umbrella I held over my head. The cemetery grass squelched under my shoes. Edmund's casket gleamed darkly under the canopy. 62 years old, dead from a massive heart attack, 3 weeks after his cardiologist had given him a perfect screening. The doctors said these things happened. Stress, hidden arterial weaknesses, random medical tragedy. I'd believe them because I had no choice. Belief was easier than questions I didn't want answered. Mourners filed past offering condolences I didn't hear. My son Donovan stood beside me, hollow-eyed, his hand cold in mine. He'd barely spoken since his father's death. Grief had carved him out from the inside. Then I heard it, a whisper at Edmund's casket. I loved him too. Bethany, junior analyst from Edmund's firm, 20 years younger than me. Blonde hair perfect even in rain. She touched the casket edge like she had a right to mourn intimately. Why would a junior employee grieve a boss like that? Keep that question in mind. Later, at the reception, Judge Francine Ashford had pulled me aside, Edmund's law school roommate, 40 years of friendship between them. Ruth? Her voice was gravel and certainty. Edmund ensured you'd be defended when you need it most. He knew what he was doing. I'd nodded through fog. Defended from what? I didn't ask, couldn't process anything beyond the casket and the finality. I should have asked. 2 months after the funeral, June 2020, Sunday dinner at my house, the tradition Edmund and I had maintained for decades. Now just Donovan and me, navigating grief's awkward silence. Then he brought her. "Mom, this is Bethany from Dad's firm." Donovan's voice was flat, lifeless. "She's been helping me understand some of the business stuff Dad left unfinished." Bethany extended her hand, warm smile perfectly calibrated. "Mrs. Caldwell, I'm so sorry for your loss. Edmund was an incredible mentor." Mentor. The word felt wrong in her mouth. "Please, call me Ruth." I tried to mean it, tried to welcome this stranger my grieving son needed. "Thank you for helping Donovan. I know Edmund's affairs were complicated." We sat. I served pot roast Edmund had loved. Donovan pushed food around his plate while Bethany filled the silence with professional small talk about the firm. The clients, the restructuring happening after Edmund's death. She knew too much about Edmund's preferences, his coffee order, his favorite restaurant downtown, small details that felt overly familiar for a junior analyst. "How did you come to work at Caldwell Financial?" I asked. "Oh, I stumbled into it by chance, really." Her laugh was rehearsed. "Saw a job posting, applied, got lucky." Stumbled by chance. Yet she'd been there 3 years before Edmund died, long enough to know him well. Too well? Later, after they'd left, I found the quarterly trust statement Donovan had brought for me to review. Edmund and I had established the trust decades ago, our family's financial security. The balance looked lower than I remembered. I called Donovan the next day to ask. He'd been short, defensive. "Mom, investments fluctuate. You don't need to micromanage everything." That was the first time he'd spoken to me like I was the problem. Hope shifted to creeping dread. Something was wrong. I just couldn't name it yet. May 11th, 2024. The same evening, Bethany delivered my box of erasure. I stood in my kitchen holding my phone. My sister Clara answered on the first ring. "Ruth? What's wrong? Your voice sounds—" "She came to my door today," the words spilled out. "Bethany brought me a box of Donovan's childhood things. Told me I'm not invited to Mother's Day brunch tomorrow because I haven't earned a place in their family." Silence on the line. Then Clara's sharp intake of breath. "That isolation isn't normal, Ruth. This has gone too far." "I know." My voice broke. 8 months. 8 months of silence. 8 months of being erased. "Remember the trust review we did at Christmas?" Clara's voice shifted. She'd been a federal auditor for 30 years. Numbers were her language. "I noticed something then, but didn't want to worry you during the holidays." My stomach dropped. "What?" "A wire transfer. $425,000, September 2023. No authorization from you in the file. When I asked Donovan about it, he said it was portfolio rebalancing. But Ruth, the receiving account wasn't one I recognized. $425,000, missing, moved without my knowledge." "There's something else," Clara continued. "Do you still have that brass key Judge Ashford gave you in February?" The key, I'd forgotten. Pushed it into my kitchen drawer and tried to forget the judge's cryptic words when she'd pressed it into my palm at the coffee shop. "Edmund made me promise," Judge Ashford had said. "If Bethany ever isolated you from Donovan completely, I give you this. He said you'd know what to do when the time came." I pulled open the drawer now. The small brass key gleamed under the kitchen light. First National Bank etched into the metal. "I think it's time you opened whatever Edmund left you," Clara said quietly. "Whatever's in that safe deposit box, he wanted you to have it when things got bad. I think bad just arrived at your doorway with a cardboard box." My breathing steadied, shifted from panic to controlled, determined. Tomorrow was Mother's Day. Bethany thought she'd excluded me from celebration, from family, from my son. She had no idea what she'd just activated. May 12th, 2024, Mother's Day morning, Pacific Northwest Bank's vault smelled like metal and old paper. The manager, Mr. Peterson, had recognized me immediately. Mom's family had banked here for 3 generations. "Mrs. Caldwell." He'd nodded gravely. "Your husband said you'd come eventually. He was very specific about the conditions for access. Said when you were ready, you'd know. The safe deposit box was small, number 247. The key slid in smoothly like it had been waiting. Inside, a USB drive, 3 manila folders thick with documents, and a letter in Edmund's handwriting addressed to me. My hands shook as I unfolded the pages. My dearest Ruth, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and Bethany has likely succeeded in isolating you from Donovan. I've known about her for 7 months. She's dangerous, more dangerous than you can imagine. I've documented everything that matters. By the time you read this, she's probably worked her way into your lives completely. I'm so sorry I didn't stop her while I could. The words blurred. I blinked hard. I've hired a private investigator. The reports are in the folders. What I believe she's doing to my body is also documented. Medical tests. Suspicions I couldn't prove in time. Ruth, I need you to know I discovered the affair 6 months before I died. I confronted her. That's when I started feeling wrong. The doctors couldn't explain my symptoms. I think she... My sharp intake of breath echoed in the small private room. Oh my God, I whispered. He knew. Imagine finding out your dead husband knew the truth all along but couldn't warn you. Have you ever discovered something too late? I spread the documents across the table. My breathing was ragged at first, then controlled. Forced calm. Edmund's letter was 10 pages. Detailed, methodical. The man I'd married was a lawyer first, emotional second. Even dying, he'd been building a case. I've established protection mechanisms, trust modifications, legal fail-safes. Judge Francine Ashford has my final video recording and sealed evidence. When you're ready, contact her. The trustees I've selected don't know Bethany exists. They're loyal to your family, not mine. Video recording. Evidence. Trustees. Edmund had been preparing for this, for his death, for Bethany's takeover, for my isolation. I opened the first folder, Private Investigator's Report dated October 2019 to March 2020, surveillance logs, photographs of hotel entrances, Edmund and Bethany entering, separate times, careful spacing, 3 different cities, Portland, Vancouver, San Francisco, the affair, real, documented. My hands steadied. The grief I'd carried for 4 years crystallized into something harder, something focused. The second folder held financial documents, trust account transfers, shell companies I didn't recognize, account numbers offshore, Edmund's signature on authorization documents I'd never seen, and Bethany's signature right beside his. The third folder was labeled medical. Inside, test results flagged by Edmund's personal physician, elevated levels of heavy metals in his blood work, toxicology reports noting unusual compounds, notes from 3 different specialists questioning the sudden progression of symptoms in a previously healthy man. At the bottom, Edmund's handwritten note, I started feeling wrong after our anniversary dinner, just tired at first, then increasingly ill. When I began keeping track, I noticed I only felt this way after meals Bethany prepared for me at the office. She'd started bringing me special vitamin smoothies, green powder, said it would help with stress. I had it tested. The results are in this file. I can't prove she knew what she was doing, but the timing is damning. The green powder. His last words. Pages rustled as I turned them, each one a piece of betrayal, affair, theft, possible murder. Edmund's voice echoed from the letter. I failed you in life, Ruth. I was weak, vain, susceptible to flattery from a beautiful young woman who made me feel relevant again. By the time I understood what she really was, I was dying. But I couldn't leave you unprotected. The final page detailed trust mechanisms, conduct-based forfeiture clauses. If the daughter-in-law systematically isolated the mother-in-law from family, automatic penalties triggered. Financial protections, legal tripwires. Edmund had built a trap from beyond the grave. Trust Francine, he'd written. She has everything else you need, the smoking gun evidence, the proof I couldn't get while alive. Go to her when you're ready. And Ruth, I know you. You'll want to confront Bethany immediately. Don't. Be patient, methodical. She's been planning this for years. You need to be smarter. I read it again, then a third time. Sometimes the people who hurt us most also give us the tools to save ourselves. Edmund failed Ruth in life, but in death, he'd given me weapons. I gathered the documents carefully, slid them into my bag. The USB drive went into my pocket. Evidence, protection, justice delayed but not denied. In the vault's quiet, I pulled out my phone, dialed Judge Francine Ashford. She answered immediately. Ruth, you opened it. I'm ready to understand everything, I said. My voice was steady now, cold, determined. Come to my house this afternoon, 2:00. We have a lot to discuss. I walked out of Pacific Northwest Bank at 9:45 a.m. on Mother's Day. The Seattle morning was bright and mild. People hurried past carrying flowers and brunch reservations. Bethany thought she'd won, thought she'd isolated me completely, thought the weapons were all hers. She had no idea Edmund had armed me 4 years ago. Now I just had to learn how to use them. Judge Francine Ashford's home study smelled like old books and leather. Heavy curtains muted the afternoon light. I sat across from her, the woman who'd known Edmund since law school, who'd held his secrets for 4 years. Her voice was gravel worn smooth by decades on the bench. Edmund came to me 3 weeks before he died, March 2020. He was terrified, Ruth, not just of dying, of leaving you unprotected. My hands gripped the chair arms. What did he tell you? Everything. She pulled a sealed manila envelope from her desk drawer. The sound of paper sliding against paper filled the quiet. He discovered the affair 6 months earlier, confronted Bethany in January. That's when he started feeling wrong. Remember Bethany, my daughter-in-law, the woman who dismissed me from my own son's life with a cardboard box of discarded memories, had apparently been planning this for years. Wrong how? My throat was tight. Nausea, weakness, symptoms his doctors couldn't explain in a man with perfect cardiovascular health. Francine's chair creaked as she leaned forward. He suspected she was poisoning him, had his blood tested privately, 3 different labs. The room tilted slightly. I forced myself to breathe. Why didn't he go to the police? Shame. The word landed heavy. Fear of destroying Donovan's image of him. Edmund knew the affair made him look guilty, made his suspicions seem like paranoid deflection. He wanted to handle it quietly, legally, protect you and Donovan through the trust mechanisms. She pushed the envelope across the desk. This is the private investigator's full report. 10 months of surveillance, hotel records from 3 cities, text message archives, financial forensics showing her theft started even before the affair. 10 months. Edmund had been documenting his own destruction for nearly a year. There's more. Francine's voice dropped. The PI found evidence Bethany had researched parental alienation tactics, downloaded articles, studied psychological manipulation techniques. This wasn't opportunistic, Ruth. She'd been preparing to isolate you from Donovan since before Edmund died. The anticipation I'd felt walking in here curdled into dread. That evening, I spread the private investigator's report across my home office desk. Pages and pages of surveillance logs, photographs time-stamped and location tagged. Edmund and Bethany. Portland Marriott, July 14, 2019. Entering separately, 30 minutes apart. Vancouver Four Seasons, September 22, 2019. Same pattern. San Francisco Ritz-Carlton, November 8, 2019. 13 months. The affair had lasted 13 months before Edmund died. My phone buzzed. Clara. I'm coming over, don't argue. 20 minutes later, her footsteps crossed my hardwood floor. She didn't knock anymore. Hadn't needed to in 73 years of being my sister. Show me everything, she said. I handed her the financial section. Clara had spent 30 years auditing federal accounts. If anyone could decode Bethany's theft, it was her. She read in silence. Her fingers stopped on one document. B&H Advisory, Incorporated, October 2019. What is it? A shell company. Clara's voice was clinical, cold. B&H Bethany Nicole Harris. Her maiden name. She incorporated this 9 months before Edmund died, Ruth. The words hung there. She was positioning herself to take everything while sleeping with my husband, I said. We need a forensic accountant, someone who can track where the money went after it left your trust accounts. This is beyond what I can piece together from quarterly statements. I pulled out the text message archives, screenshots the PI had obtained somehow, Edmund and Bethany's private communications. Most were coded, careful, but the timestamps told their own story. Messages sent during hours Edmund claimed to be working late, calls made while I thought he was playing golf. How long would it take you to forgive someone who destroyed your spouse? Drop your honest answer below. Clara's hand found mine. We'll get through this. But would we? Or would this evidence just confirm what I'd lost could never be recovered? Later that night, alone again, I found myself scrolling through my phone's saved voicemails, old messages I'd kept from Donovan over the years, birthday wishes, quick check-ins, the ordinary accumulation of a mother-son relationship. Then I reached November 2023, the last time he'd called willingly. I pressed play. Donovan's voice came through, tinny and flat. Mom, Bethany thinks we need healthier boundaries. I agree. Let's take some space for a while. I'll call you when I'm ready. Bethany thinks. Not I think. Not we've decided together. Bethany thinks. His natural warmth was gone, replaced by something rehearsed, defensive, like he was reading from a script she'd written. I'd heard the shift then but hadn't understood it. My son, who'd called me every Sunday since college, suddenly parroting his wife's therapeutic language about boundaries and space and emotional health. When Donovan was 8, Edmund had taught him to ride a bike in our driveway. He'd fallen twice, scraped his knee, and Edmund had scooped him up saying, "Caldwell men don't quit." By the third try, Donovan was flying down the street, laughing with pure joy. That bond between them had been unbreakable, until grief made him vulnerable, until Bethany saw that vulnerability as opportunity. She took you from me, I whispered to the recording, but I'm getting you back. How do you fight for someone who thinks you're the enemy? 3 days later, May 15th. Clara's home office had better technology than mine. Dual monitors, professional accounting software. The tools she'd used to unravel federal fraud cases for 3 decades. She'd been working since dawn. When I arrived at noon, her desk was covered in printouts marked with colored highlighters. "Sit down," Clara said. Her voice carried that controlled fury I remembered from her courthouse testimony days. I sat. This isn't just the $425,000 we found at Christmas. The total is $2.3 million, Ruth. The number didn't feel real. Too large. Too devastating. $2.3 million diverted from your trust over 4 years. Shell companies, fake client reimbursements, fabricated estate planning fees, 19 separate documents with forged signatures. Clara's fingers flew across her calculator. Your signature specifically. Someone studied your handwriting patterns and reproduced them well enough to fool the bank. Almost. Almost? Pressure analysis shows slight inconsistencies, and bank surveillance from March 2023 shows a woman matching Bethany's approximate height and build, wearing a gray wig, padding around her waist, glasses. She walked into your branch and withdrew $180,000 by impersonating you. My sharp intake of breath was the only sound in the room for several seconds. Can we prove it? I asked. The surveillance video is grainy but analyzable. Gait analysis, body proportions. Yes, Ruth, we can prove it. This isn't just theft. This is systematic fraud spanning 4 years. Identity theft. Forgery. She added herself as co-trustee using documents you never signed. The printer hummed to life. page after page of forensic analysis. Clara turned to face me fully. From Bethany's view, this was perfect. Seduce the boss, eliminate the wife, marry the grieving son, steal the fortune, frame any objections as the bitter mother-in-law's jealousy. Almost perfect, except Edmund had been smarter than she'd realized. And now I had proof. 6 days after Mother's Day, May 18th. Clara arrived at my house carrying her laptop, her face grim. I accessed Bethany's cloud storage through the investigation team's resources. She set the laptop on my kitchen table. "You need to hear this." She played an audio file. My voice filled the room. "I never wanted Donovan to marry someone like you. You're manipulative, calculating. You don't deserve my son." I gasped. "I never said that." "I know." Clara played another file, my voice again. But different, warmer, natural. "I never wanted Donovan to marry someone without meeting her first, getting to know her properly. You're going through so much planning the wedding. I'm here if you need anything. I hope you know you deserve happiness, both of you. My son chose well." The difference was stark, devastating. "She recorded your conversations for years," Clara explained. Her voice was gentle, like she was delivering a terminal diagnosis, then professionally edited them, spliced sentences together, cut out context, made you sound cruel, unstable, controlling. "She made me sound like a monster." My voice broke. No wonder Donovan believed her, if he heard me say those things. "This is psychological abuse, Ruth, against both of you. She weaponized your own words to isolate you from your son." Clara played more examples. Side by side, original versus edited, each one more sickening than the last. The recordings went back 3 years. Bethany had been collecting ammunition since 2021, preparing for the moment she'd need to completely sever my relationship with Donovan. She'd also created fake text messages, spoofed my phone number, sent Donovan hateful messages that appeared to come from me, messages I'd never written. If someone recorded you for years and twisted your words, how would you prove your truth? Comment below. The level of planning, the patience, the calculated manipulation. This wasn't impulsive. This was methodical destruction. May 20th. 8 days after the doorway dismissal that started everything, I sat in Judge Francine Ashford's study again, this time with Clara beside me. Evidence folders covered the desk between us. Financial forensics, surveillance photos, edited recordings with original versions for comparison, Edmund's letter and PI report. "We have enough to file criminal charges now," Francine said. The sound of folders being organized punctuated her words. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. The prosecutor would take this case. "But," I heard the hesitation in her voice, "Donovan." Clara voiced what we were all thinking. If we act now, he might not believe it. Cognitive dissonance. He's been manipulated for 4 years. Part of him will want to defend Bethany. "What are you suggesting?" I asked. Francine stood. Her chair creaked. She walked to a locked cabinet, retrieved a USB drive. Edmund left video testimony, recorded 2 days before he died in a parking garage. He knew he was running out of time. The drive felt impossibly heavy when she placed it in my palm. "You need to watch it," Francine said. "Then we plan our confrontation. Make it public. Make it undeniable. Give Donovan no room to rationalize or excuse." "When?" My voice was steady now, determined. "Bethany's hosting a women's leadership brunch at the Four Seasons, June 11th, 3 weeks from now. She's inviting Seattle's professional elite, making herself look like a rising philanthropic force." "You're invited?" Clara asked. "As a respected retired judge." Francine's smile was cold. "And I can bring a guest." The 3 women's voices layered together as we planned. Strategy, timing, evidence presentation, how to crash a brunch and detonate a life in front of 45 witnesses. "Edmund left you everything you need," Francine said, "but you must be willing to use it, all of it, no mercy." I've been passive for 4 years, I said, grieving, confused, paralyzed. That ends now. Clara touched my shoulder. What about Donovan? When he learns the truth about his father's affair, his wife's manipulation, his mother's stolen money, this will destroy him. I looked at the USB drive in my hand, Edmund's final message, his confession, his protection, his apology. Bethany already destroyed him. She's been destroying him for 4 years. I'm not destroying anything. I'm saving what's left of my son before she finishes the job. Ruth was about to do something Edmund couldn't, face the truth head on. Francine handed me back the USB drive. 3 weeks. Watch the video. Prepare yourself. Then we give Bethany the perfect Mother's Day gift. I left her house at sunset. The drive felt hot in my pocket. 3 weeks to prepare, 3 weeks to build courage, 3 weeks to craft justice. In the car, I whispered to myself, I had 3 weeks to prepare the perfect gift. The gift Bethany would never forget. May 21st, 11:04 p.m. 9 days after Bethany handed me that cardboard box, I sat alone in my bedroom with my laptop open and Edmund's USB drive inserted. The video file icon stared at me. I'd been avoiding this for 9 days, afraid of what I'd see, afraid of hearing Edmund's voice again after 4 years of silence. My hand hovered over the mouse. Clicked. Edmund's face filled the screen. The video quality was grainy, shot on his phone in what looked like a parking garage. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. His breathing was labored, scared. Son, if you're watching this, I'm gone. Edmund's voice echoed slightly off concrete walls. And Bethany has likely positioned herself in your life exactly as she planned. She isn't who you think she is. My chest tightened. This was April 16th, 2020, 2 days before he died in our kitchen. I need you to know about the affair. I met Bethany 3 years ago when she started at the firm. She was attentive, flattering, made me feel relevant again in ways your mother couldn't. That's not Ruth's fault. That's mine, my vanity, my weakness. Tears burned my eyes. 6 months ago, I discovered she was targeting us. Not accidentally. She'd researched our family for over a year before applying to work at Caldwell Financial. I confronted her in January. That's when I started feeling wrong. Edmund held up a small bottle to the camera. Green powder visible inside. This is what she's been putting in my morning smoothies. Special vitamins, she called them. Stress relief. I had it tested at 3 different labs. All confirmed oleander alkaloids, cardiotoxic, lethal in accumulated doses. My hand covered my mouth. I confronted her yesterday, told her I knew everything. The affair, the poisoning, the financial theft I'd discovered through my own forensic review. She denied it all, but I saw something in her voice. Calculation. She's already planning her next move. Edmund's breathing was ragged now, desperate. If something happens to me in the next few days, investigate thoroughly. Protect your mother from this woman, Donovan. She's been positioning herself to isolate Ruth, marry you, steal everything we built. I've documented it all. Judge Ashford has the evidence. Trust protections are in place. But you need to believe this. Please. His voice cracked. I failed you both. Your mother deserved better than my betrayal. You deserved a father who could protect you instead of falling for a woman, executing a revenge fantasy I didn't even understand yet. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The video ended. I sat in silence. My tears had stopped. Something harder had replaced them. You should have told me, I whispered to the blank screen. We could have faced this together, you coward. But even as I said it, I understood. Edmund had been ashamed, terrified, trying to protect his son's image of him even while being murdered. Forgiveness is complicated when the person who betrayed you also tried to save you. Bethany, the woman who'd murdered my husband, stolen my money, and turned my son against me using edited recordings and manufactured lies, had one thing she hadn't counted on: Edmund's paranoia. 3 days later, May 24th afternoon, Seattle Public Library's research room was quiet except for the hum of computers and the rustle of Clara's notes. We'd been digging into Bethany's background for hours: employment history, educational records, anything that explained why she'd targeted us so specifically. Clara's printer whirred to life. She grabbed the pages, scanned them. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Ruth, Bethany's mother worked at your firm. She knew Edmund." My stomach dropped. "When?" 1996, 28 years ago, before you and Edmund were married." Clara's fingers trembled slightly as she handed me the document. Personnel file, employee name, Diane Harris. Position, junior receptionist. Terminated after 7 months. Reason stated, inappropriate workplace relationship. The library air felt suddenly thick. With who? But I already knew. Edmund Caldwell. Clara's whisper was barely audible. "There's a notation from the managing partner. Diane Harris became obsessed after termination, sent letters to the firm, made phone calls. They eventually got a restraining order." My sharp gasp made someone at a nearby table glance over. I forced myself quiet. "Bethany was born in 1988, Clara continued. 2 years after this termination. Diane raised her alone. Foster care records show she told multiple social workers about the wealthy family that should have been theirs." The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. "This was never about money," I said. "This was revenge, generational revenge. Diane poisoned Bethany with this fantasy from childhood. Sometimes the enemy you're facing was created long before you even knew they existed." Clara printed more documents. Bethany's educational history showed strategic choices: business degree, estate planning certification, every qualification designed to infiltrate a financial firm, to seem perfect for Caldwell Financial specifically. "She spent her entire life preparing for this," Clara said. "Her mother's obsession became her mission. If this story has you hooked, subscribe so you don't miss how Ruth uses this knowledge. And comment, have you ever been targeted by someone's family grudge?" May 27th evening, 2 weeks before the brunch. Judge Francine Ashford's study again. This time, all 3 of us sat around her desk, covered in evidence. "We have enough to file criminal charges tomorrow," Clara said. Her voice was firm, decisive. "Fraud, forgery, impersonation. The prosecutor would take this case immediately. We could have Bethany arrested by Friday." "But can you prove it beyond Donovan's denial?" Judge Ashford's question hung heavy. He's been systematically manipulated for 4 years, psychologically controlled. Part of him will want to defend her, rationalize, deny. My silence stretched out. Both women waited. "If I act too soon and he hates me forever, I've lost him anyway," I said finally. "If I expose Bethany before the evidence is undeniable, before Donovan can't rationalize it away, he might choose her, make me the villain trying to destroy his marriage." "But waiting means risk," Clara countered. "More money stolen. Bethany potentially fleeing. She's smart enough to sense we're investigating." The 3 voices overlapped slightly as we debated. Evidence versus timing. Justice versus strategy. My hands gripped the chair arms. Judge Ashford's voice cut through. "Edmund trusted patience. He built his protections slowly, methodically, knowing you'd need undeniable proof to save Donovan. So should you trust that same patience? What would you choose? Immediate justice or the chance to truly save your child?" I thought about Donovan's voicemail, the flatness in his voice, the way he'd parroted Bethany's therapeutic language without realizing she'd programmed him. "We wait," I said. My voice was quiet but firm, resolved. "We make it undeniable. Give Donovan no room to rationalize or deny. One shot to save my son." Clara started to object. I held up my hand. If Edmund taught me anything through that video, it's that rushing gets you killed. We do this right, completely, publicly, with witnesses who matter. No private confrontations she can twist. No she said she can manipulate. Judge Ashford nodded slowly. Then we proceed as planned. The brunch, public venue, Seattle's elite watching, evidence so overwhelming Donovan can't deny it. The decision was made. The next 11 days blurred together, May 28th through June 8th, late nights in my home office, the sound of my printer running constantly, pages accumulating. I was creating something Edmund would have appreciated, methodical, beautiful, devastating. The evidence book, museum-quality binding, thick cream pages, each one annotated in my own handwriting, personal, undeniable. Not some corporate forensic report, a mother's careful documentation of how her family was destroyed. Page 1, my wedding photo, Edmund and me, impossibly young, 1982. Page 2, newborn Donovan in Edmund's arms. Page 3, our family at Donovan's high school graduation. Then page 8, time-stamped surveillance photo, Bethany and Edmund entering the Portland Marriott, July 14, 2019. The juxtaposition was intentional, brutal. Clara watched me work one evening, the scratch of my pen as I annotated another page. This isn't just evidence. This is a weapon. No, I didn't look up. It's the truth, beautifully presented. Every receipt, every text, every lie, every manipulation tactic, all bound in leather with silver embossing. Section 1, the affair, hotel records, text archives, apartment lease Edmund signed. Section 2, the theft, 2.3 million track-through shell companies, forged signatures, bank surveillance stills. Section 3, the poisoning, medical records, lab results, Edmund's video transcript. Section 4, the manipulation, original recordings versus edited versions, fake text messages, parental alienation research Bethany had downloaded. Section 5, the consequences, trust forfeiture clauses, legal protections Edmund built, arrest warrants already prepared, every receipt, every text, every lie, every manipulation, all bound in leather. I had 2 copies made, one for Bethany, one for Donovan, identical except for the dedication page. Bethany's, to the truth you tried to bury. Donovan's, to the son I refused to lose. June 1st, 10 days before the brunch. The courier knocked at 3 p.m. I signed for the envelope from Donovan's attorney. My hands were steady as I tore it open, the legal letterhead, the formal language. I read aloud to my empty living room. No contact whatsoever with Donovan Edmund Caldwell or Bethany Nicole Harris Caldwell. Cease all harassment and threatening behavior. Further attempts at contact will result in restraining order filing and potential criminal charges. Harassment, threatening behavior, Bethany's final masterpiece of manipulation. The letter continued. The Caldwells will be relocating to Austin, Texas in August 2024 for Mr. Caldwell's career advancement. They request you respect their privacy during this transition. Relocating, fleeing, more accurately. Taking my son across the country where I'd never see him again. The rage that filled me was cold, surgical, focused. You just made your final mistake, I whispered. I called Judge Ashford immediately. She answered on the first ring. They're planning to move to Austin in August, I said. My breathing was controlled despite the fury. We act at the brunch, June 11th. No more waiting. Agreed, Francine said. I'll confirm final details with the prosecutors. They'll be standing by. The rage shifted to icy calm. 10 days. Then justice. June 8th. 3 days before the brunch, Judge Ashford's study for the last time before everything changed. The 3 of us reviewed the plan with tense, quiet focus. I'm invited as a respected retired judge, Francine confirmed. Bethany's brunch is about networking with Seattle's legal and philanthropic community. I can bring a guest. You'll enter with me." "The book?" I asked. "Give it to her privately first. Catch her in a quiet moment before the event fully starts. Watch her react. Give her a chance to cooperate quietly." Clara's voice held doubt. "What if she doesn't?" "Then we do it publicly," I said, "with all 45 guests watching. Either way, the evidence gets delivered. Either way, Donovan sees the truth." The sound of folders being organized, Ruth placing the elegantly wrapped evidence book in a gift box, silver ribbon being tied with careful precision. "Once you hand her that book, there's no going back," Judge Ashford said. Her gravelly voice weighted each word. "Are you absolutely certain?" "There was no going back the day she poisoned my husband." Clara touched my shoulder. "What if Donovan still chooses her? Even after seeing everything, cognitive dissonance can be powerful." The question I'd been avoiding for weeks. "Then at least he'll know the truth when he does," I said. "At least he'll make that choice with full knowledge instead of her manufactured lies. That's all I can give him. The truth, undeniable, witnessed, real." In 3 days, Ruth would give Bethany a gift she'd never forget. The final planning stretched into evening. Details about timing, where to position ourselves, how to handle Bethany's likely reactions, what to do if she tried to flee. Prosecutors were briefed and standing by. Arrest warrants prepared, financial recovery procedures ready to execute. Everything was in place. June 11th morning, Mother's Day. I dressed in the elegant navy suit I'd bought specifically for this. The fabric felt smooth against my skin, professional, powerful. The weight of it grounded me. My car engine hummed to life. Seattle traffic was light on Sunday morning. I drove to the Four Seasons, my hands steady on the wheel. The gift box sat on my passenger seat. Inside, the evidence book that would destroy Bethany's carefully constructed lies. The evidence book that would save my son, or lose him forever. Mother's Day. How fitting that this would end where it began. A celebration of motherhood, mine stolen, now reclaimed. I pulled into the Four Seasons parking garage, cut the engine, sat in silence. Then I picked up the gift box, stepped out, walked toward the lobby. Judge Ashford was waiting. The Four Seasons lobby gleamed with polished marble and crystal chandeliers. Voices murmured. Glasses clinked somewhere distant. My heels clicked across the floor, each step measured and deliberate. The gift-wrapped evidence book felt solid in my hands, heavy with truth. Security intercepted me at the ballroom entrance. Young man, crisp suit, clipboard. "Good morning, ma'am. Your name?" "Ruth Caldwell." His finger scrolled down the list, paused. "I don't see your name on the guest roster for the Women's Leadership Brunch." My chest tightened slightly, but my voice stayed calm. "I'm Judge Ashford's guest." Judge Ashford didn't indicate. Ruth Caldwell is one of Seattle's most respected business founders. Judge Francine Ashford's gravelly voice cut through from behind me. She'd timed her entrance perfectly. She co-founded Caldwell Financial Group 40 years ago. She's absolutely welcome at any event celebrating women's professional achievement. The security guard's radio crackled static. He hesitated, clearly outmatched by a retired federal judge's authority. "Of course. My apologies." He stepped aside. I walked into the ballroom. Bethany stood across the room near the windows, laughing with a group of women in designer dresses. Sunlight caught her blonde hair. She hadn't seen me yet. My breathing stayed steady, controlled. Every nerve in my body vibrated with anticipation, but my exterior remained calm. Soon. 11:15. I caught Bethany alone in the anteroom near the restrooms. She was checking her phone, isolated from the main crowd for just a moment. Perfect. Bethany. My voice was pleasant, warm even. She startled. Her head snapped up. When she saw me, something flashed across her face. Shock, quickly masked by practiced composure. "Ruth." Her voice was clipped, professional. "What are you doing here? This is a private event. I brought you something for Mother's Day." I extended the silver-wrapped box. "Surely you won't refuse a gift from your husband's mother." Guests moved past in the hallway beyond, close enough to notice if Bethany made a scene. She was trapped by social convention and an audience. Her smile was tight, forced. "This really isn't appropriate. Open it. It's very personal." She took the box with careful hands, set it on the small table beside us, untied the silver ribbon with mechanical precision. The wrapping fell away. The leather-bound book emerged. Embossed gold lettering. "The Caldwell Family Legacy, a complete documentation." "What is this?" Her voice had shifted, uncertain now. "A gift. Open it." Bethany's fingers trembled slightly as she lifted the cover. Page 1. My wedding photo. Edmund and me, young and hopeful, 1982. She turned the page. Page 2. Newborn Donovan. Page 3. Our family at Donovan's graduation. Her breathing quickened. She flipped faster. Page 8. Time-stamped surveillance photo. Bethany and Edmund entering the Portland Marriott July 14, 2019. The sharp intake of her breath was audible. "What is this?" she repeated. Her voice had gone thin, panicked. "This must be some mistake." "Keep reading," I said. My voice stayed pleasant, almost cheerful. The contrast was chilling even to me. "It gets better." Imagine watching someone's face as they realize their perfect crime just unraveled. Bethany couldn't stop turning pages, each one worse than the last. "Hotel receipts from 3 cities," I narrated calmly. "Portland, Vancouver, San Francisco, your text messages to my husband, the apartment lease he signed for you downtown, 11 months of documented affair." "This is absurd." Her voice was defensive but weak. "You can't prove—" Section 2. She turned to the financial evidence, bank statements, transfer records, shell company and corporation documents. "That shows bank surveillance of you impersonating me," I continued. "December 2023. You wore a gray wig, padding around your waist to approximate my build. Walked into First National and withdrew $180,000 using my forged signature." The pages rustled frantically as she flipped through. "You can't possibly think—" She'd reached the medical section now. "My husband did." My voice went cold. "Surgical. He recorded a video 2 days before you killed him. He had that green powder tested at 3 different labs, all confirmed oleander alkaloids, cardiotoxic, lethal in accumulated doses." Bethany's champagne glass slipped from her other hand, shattered on the marble floor. Golden liquid spread. "This is—" Her breathing was ragged now, desperate. "This is blackmail." "No." I stepped closer, kept my voice low, intimate. "This is justice, with a touch of mercy, if you earn it." Her voice rose. "I'll tell everyone Edmund was abusive, controlling, that he manufactured this evidence to—" "Using the evidence book Edmund left?" I interrupted. "The video where he confesses his affair and takes full responsibility for his betrayal. The letter where he admits his guilt and shame. Good luck making him the villain when his own testimony destroys that narrative." Nearby guests had paused, sensing drama, conversations quieting. Justice isn't always loud. Sometimes it's leather-bound and annotated. "We should return to the brunch," I said. My voice projected slightly now, ensuring those nearby could hear. "Don't you think?" Bethany's whisper was vicious. "Don't do this. You had 4 years to not do this. My turn." She had no choice. Fleeing would look guilty. Creating a scene would raise questions. She was cornered by the same social pressure she'd weaponized against me for years. We walked back into the ballroom together. Bethany's makeup was streaked slightly from sweat. Her hands trembled as she tried to compose herself. "Bethany, are you all right?" A woman in pearls touched her arm. "You look pale." "Fine, just warm in here." Bethany's voice was mechanical. My phone buzzed. Text from Donovan. "Running late, traffic, be there in 15. Perfect timing. I caught Judge Ashford's eye across the room. She nodded once. moved toward the AV setup where hotel staff had prepared equipment for Bethany's planned presentation about women's philanthropy. Different presentation today. "Ladies," I said, my voice cutting through the ambient chatter. Conversation stopped. 45 faces turned toward me. Bethany and I were just discussing family legacy, the bonds between mothers and daughters-in-law. I'd love to share what I've learned about building those relationships. Silverware stopped clinking. The room went quiet. Bethany, the woman who'd executed a dead woman's revenge fantasy, stolen millions using my forged signature, and isolated my son with edited recordings, was about to face every guest she'd tried to impress. "Ruth, please don't." Bethany's hissed whisper was desperate. I smiled. "Judge Ashford, would you help me with the technology?" The energy in the room shifted. People sensed something significant happening. Chairs turned. Attention focused completely on us. Bethany stood frozen, trapped in front of Seattle's legal and philanthropic elite. Nowhere to run, no way to escape what was coming. The ballroom doors opened. Donovan walked in, still in his business suit, slightly disheveled from rushing. He saw me first. His confusion was immediate. "Mom, what are you—" Then he saw Judge Ashford connecting a USB drive to the hotel's AV system. Then Edmund's face appeared on the massive screen behind me. Donovan's entire body went still. Edmund's face filled the screen. The parking garage footage was grainy but clear enough. His voice echoed through the ballroom sound system. "Son, if you're watching this, I'm gone, and Bethany has likely positioned herself in your life exactly as she planned." Donovan's champagne glass slipped from his hand, shattered against the marble floor. The sound was deafening in the sudden silence. "She isn't who you think she is." Edmund's breathing was labored in the video, scared. The fluorescent lights of the parking garage buzzed overhead in the recording. "I need you to know about the affair. I met Bethany 3 years ago. She was attentive, flattering, made me feel relevant in ways I hadn't felt in years. That's my failure, my weakness. But 6 months ago, I discovered she was targeting our family deliberately. She'd researched us for over a year before applying to work at Caldwell Financial." 45 guests sat in complete silence. Not a glass moved. Not a fork touched a plate. I confronted her in January. That's when I started feeling wrong. Edmund held up a small bottle to the camera, green powder visible inside. "This is what she's been putting in my morning smoothies. Special vitamins, she called them. I had it tested at 3 different labs. All confirmed oleander alkaloids, cardiotoxic, lethal in accumulated doses." Someone in the audience gasped audibly. "The green powder in our supplement cabinet isn't what the label says. I confronted her 2 days ago, told her I knew everything, the affair, the poisoning, the financial theft. If something happens to me in the next few days, investigate thoroughly. Protect your mother from this woman." Edmund's voice cracked. "Donovan, I failed you both. Your mother deserved better than my betrayal. You deserved a father who could protect you. I'm so sorry." The video ended. The silence that followed was absolute, complete, suffocating. Donovan stood frozen near the entrance. His breathing came in short, shallow gasps. His voice, when he finally spoke, was barely a whisper, a choked sound. "Dad? How do you process learning your father was murdered by your wife?" Bethany moved toward him. "Donovan, this is fabricated. She's manipulating you." He backed away from her. 3 steps, then 4, like she was dangerous, contaminated. If your heart is pounding right now, subscribe because you need to see how this ends. Drop a heart emoji if you're Team Ruth. There's more. My voice cut through the shocked silence. Context that explains why Bethany targeted our family so specifically. I walked to the center of the room, all eyes on me. Bethany stood isolated now, no one near her. Bethany's mother was Diane Harris. She worked at Caldwell Financial in 1996, 28 years ago, before Edmund and I were married. I paused. Let it sink in. Diane had an affair with Edmund. Brief, meaningless to him. But when the managing partner discovered it, she was fired, terminated for inappropriate workplace relationship. The room was utterly silent. Diane became obsessed, sent letters to the firm, made phone calls, eventually required a restraining order. She raised Bethany alone, filling her childhood with stories about the wealthy family that should have been theirs. The money. The status. Everything Edmund supposedly owed them. A collective gasp rippled through the guests. This was never about love, I continued. This was generational revenge. Bethany spent her entire life preparing to infiltrate our family, to seduce Edmund, to marry our son, to take everything her mother believed we'd stolen from them. You don't know anything about my mother, Bethany's voice finally cracked. Defensive, raw. I know she poisoned you with hatred before you could even walk, I said. My voice was quieter now, almost pitying. I know she turned you into a weapon aimed at innocent people who didn't even know she existed. Bethany wasn't born evil. She was raised as a weapon. The room's energy had shifted from shock to something else. Horror mixed with understanding, the pieces clicking together for everyone watching. Judge Francine Ashford stood, her chair scraped against the floor. The sound commanded attention. What Ruth hasn't mentioned yet, Francine said, her authoritative voice filling the ballroom, is that Edmund Caldwell anticipated exactly this scenario. He came to me 3 weeks before his death with extensive legal protections. She pulled documents from her briefcase. Edmund modified the family trust in March 2020 with specific conduct-based forfeiture clauses. If anyone systematically isolated Ruth from family relationships, automatic penalties triggered. Bethany's breathing came in gasps now. Bethany's isolation of Ruth over the past 4 years triggered complete forfeiture of her claimed interest in the Caldwell estate. $1.9 million redirected to educational charitable funds. This can't be legal. Bethany's voice was desperate. It's completely legal, Francine interrupted, and already activated. I can confirm that Edmund Caldwell executed these protections with full legal authority. They're ironclad. She turned to address the room. Additionally, Edmund's life insurance policy, $1.8 million, named Ruth as primary beneficiary with specific instructions for legal defense against fraud. He knew what was coming. He protected his family even though he couldn't protect himself. Edmund couldn't save himself, I said quietly, but he saved his family. The guests' murmuring grew louder, whispered conversation spreading like wildfire. Edmund's redemption wasn't perfect, but it was real. There's one more thing you should know, I said to the room. The King County Prosecutor's Office has been reviewing this evidence for 8 weeks. They're standing by outside. Right on cue, the ballroom doors opened. 2 uniformed officers and a man in a dark suit entered. Bethany Harris Caldwell? The prosecutor's voice was formal, official. Bethany's voice went high, panicked. This is insane. Donovan, tell them. But Donovan was backing away, his footsteps echoing in the marble lobby beyond, moving away from her, from everything. Bethany Nicole Harris Caldwell, you're under arrest for aggravated financial fraud in the 1st degree, identity theft, forgery of legal documents, and suspicion of involvement in the death of Edmund Caldwell. You have the right to remain silent. The handcuffs clicked around her wrists. The sound was final, definitive. The medical evidence is insufficient for murder prosecution, the prosecutor continued, his voice carrying to the silent room. But the financial crimes alone carry 18 to 22 years federal prison time. Police radios crackled static. Bethany was being led toward the exit, in front of Seattle's elite, in front of everyone she'd tried to impress. This isn't over, she hissed at me as they passed. You'll regret. But the rest was lost as the doors closed behind her. The room erupted in stunned conversation. 45 voices all at once. Shock, disbelief, validation of suspicions some had harbored. I stood in the center of it, calm, vindicated, justice delivered. The room's energy was chaos. Stunned silence transformed into urgent whispers, conversations spreading like flames. 30 minutes later, the guests had dispersed. Most fled, uncomfortable with the drama. A few lingered, asking Judge Ashford legal questions. I found Donovan in the hotel lobby, sitting on a bench near the windows, his head in his hands. I approached slowly, sat beside him, said nothing. He didn't speak for a long time. His breathing was ragged, uneven, the sound of someone trying not to fall apart completely. Finally, his voice came, broken, barely audible. I don't... Mom, I'm so sorry. You were manipulated by an expert, I said quietly. Someone who spent her entire life learning how to do exactly what she did to you. She fooled everyone. I abandoned you. His voice cracked. For years, said horrible things, cut you out completely. And I spent years getting you back. My voice stayed gentle. Maternal in a way I hadn't allowed myself to be in so long. That's what mothers do. His choked sob was raw, painful to hear. I believed her, he whispered. I believed every lie, the recordings, the texts. I thought you were trying to control my life. I thought... She was very good at her job. Dad had an affair. Dad was poisoned. My wife is a... He couldn't finish. How do I come back from this? One day at a time, I said. One conversation at a time. We'll talk when you're ready. Really talk. Honestly. No lies between us. What if I'm never ready? Then I'll wait. I touched his shoulder gently. I'm not going anywhere. Not anymore. His sobbing intensified, years of manipulation cracking open. The grief he'd been carrying since Edmund died, now compounded by betrayal beyond comprehension. I sat with him. Let him cry. Didn't try to fix it with words. Some things could only be healed with time and presence. After a while, he spoke again. The video. Seeing Dad's face. Hearing his voice after 4 years. I know. He admitted everything. The affair, the weakness, but he tried to save us. He did save us, through legal protections, through evidence, through trusting that I'd be strong enough to finish what he couldn't. Donovan's voice was small, childlike. Can you ever forgive me? The question hung between us. There's nothing to forgive, I said finally. You were a victim just as much as I was, maybe more. She took your father, your wife, your sense of reality, all while making you think I was the enemy. How do I trust anyone again? You start with yourself, then slowly, carefully, you rebuild. We sat in silence. The hotel lobby bustled around us, life continuing despite our personal devastation. Eventually, he stood. I need time to process, to figure out who I am without her voice in my head telling me what to think. Take all the time you need, but I want to try to rebuild us, if you'll let me. That's all I've ever wanted. He nodded once, then walked toward the exit, alone. I watched him go. My son, broken but not destroyed, manipulated but finally free. Justice was swift. Healing would take longer. 4 months later, October 2024. My home office was quiet except for the sound of papers rustling and Clara's calculator clicking steadily. Every dollar recovered, Clara said, reviewing the final forensic accounting report. $2.3 million, plus $340,000 in statutory damages and accrued interest. I set down my coffee cup. And the company? Posting its best quarter since Edmund died. Clara's voice held satisfaction. Revenue up 18%. Client retention at 94%. You didn't just save Caldwell Financial, Ruth. You're growing it. The quarterly report spread across my desk told the story in numbers. Edmund had built something worth fighting for. Now it was protected. restructured with multi-layered safeguards that made future theft virtually impossible. The trust modifications are ironclad, Clara continued. Independent oversight, triple signature requirements on large transfers. No single person can access more than 50,000 without board approval. I nodded. Bethany's plea deal finalized? 15 years federal prison. No parole eligibility until she's served 85%. She'll be 51 when released. 15 years. It wasn't life, wasn't justice for possible murder, but it was something. Donovan's divorce? Finalized last week. No assets to divide since she forfeited everything through the trust clauses. From past trauma to present success. That was the shift I felt sitting here. Not just survival, actual rebuilding. That same week, Sunday evening, Donovan sat across from me at my dining room table for the first time in over a year. He'd lost weight. Gray threaded through his hair at the temples. Therapy was helping, his voice said, but the work was hard. Silverware clinked against plates. Normal dinner sounds I'd missed desperately. I know I can never make up for those 3 years, Donovan said quietly. His voice was fragile but present. The things I said, the way I abandoned you. You start by being here. Now, that's enough. He set down his fork. How did you stay strong when you'd lost everything? I hadn't lost everything. I met his eyes. I'd lost temporarily. There's a difference. We ate in silence for a moment. Not awkward silence. Something closer to peace. I'm working at the firm as junior partner, he said, earning back trust, learning the business properly this time instead of being isolated and controlled. You're doing well. Clara says you caught an accounting discrepancy last week that saved us $40,000. A ghost of a smile. Dad's paranoia genes finally useful. My gentle laughter surprised me. First real laughter in years. We're having dinner next Sunday too, I said. And the Sunday after that, weekly, until normal doesn't feel strange anymore. I'd like that. Forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's choosing to move forward anyway. Flashback, September 15th, the federal courthouse sentencing hearing. I'd sat in the front row where Bethany could see me clearly. She'd stood before the judge in an orange jumpsuit. 4 months of jail had aged her. No makeup, no designer clothes, just a woman facing consequences. Judge Morrison's voice had been scathing. You didn't just steal money, Miss Harris. You systematically destroyed a family, manipulated a grieving son against his mother, exploited trust in the most calculating ways imaginable, and quite possibly murdered the man whose vulnerability you weaponized. The courtroom had been silent except for the judge's words. The only reason you're not facing life imprisonment is the insufficiency of medical evidence on that final charge. The evidentiary standard for murder requires proof beyond reasonable doubt that we simply cannot meet. But make no mistake, this court views you as exceptionally dangerous. The gavel had struck. 15 years federal prison. No parole before 85% served. Chains had rattled as guards led Bethany toward the side exit. She'd looked at me once, held my gaze. I'd stared back, steady, unmoved. Then I'd stood and walked out of the courtroom. My footsteps echoing on marble floors. That was the last time I saw her. Justice isn't always satisfying, but it's necessary. If you've stayed with Ruth this whole journey, subscribe to see more stories of people who fought back and won. Comment, did Bethany deserve more or less time? December 2024, 8 months after that Mother's Day confrontation. Winter wind rustled through bare trees as I walked through the cemetery. White roses in one hand, the leather evidence book in the other. Edmund's headstone was simple. His name, his dates. Beloved father and protector. I'd added that last word after the sentencing. You protected me when I didn't know I needed it, I said to the stone. Thank you for trusting I'd be strong enough to finish what you couldn't. The wind picked up, colder now. I wish you'd trusted me enough to tell me the truth while you were alive. We could have faced this together. I pulled out the final envelope Judge Ashford had given me last week, marked in Edmund's handwriting, open only after justice is fully secured. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the seal. His letter was handwritten on our anniversary stationery, tear-stained in places. I read aloud to the empty cemetery. If you're reading this, my dearest Ruth, she's facing consequences for everything she's done. I'm so sorry I didn't stop her sooner. I'm sorry I betrayed you, betrayed everything we built over 38 years together. My voice cracked slightly, but I knew you possessed the strength to protect our son when I couldn't. You were always the strongest person I knew, the best person I ever knew, and I never deserved you. I destroyed our marriage, but I couldn't let her destroy our family entirely. I paused, breathed. I love you eternally, even though I shattered that love through my own choices. Forgive me if you can. Protect Donovan. He'll need you. Always, Edmund. I folded the letter carefully, placed it in the small lockbox I'd brought for this purpose. Some things were private, meant only for me. I forgive you, I whispered. Not because you deserve it, because I deserve peace. The gravel crunched under my feet as I walked back toward my car. Some people break your heart and save your life simultaneously. Mother's Day, 2025, the waterfront cafe where Edmund had proposed 43 years ago. Donovan and I had started a new tradition. Cemetery visit at dawn, then breakfast here. Watching the sunrise over Puget Sound, seagulls called overhead, a ferry horn sounded in the distance, coffee cups sat warm between our hands. I know I can never fully make up for those 3 years I lost with you, Donovan said. You're here now, that's what matters. He stirred his coffee slowly. How did you find the strength when you'd lost everything? Because some gifts take years to fully unwrap, I said. Some battles require patience rather than speed, and some lessons about trust, betrayal, and resilience can only be learned by surviving them together. And choosing hope over bitterness, I added. We sat in comfortable silence, the natural rhythm of mother and son restored. Not perfect, not without scars, but real. We're establishing a scholarship fund, I said, in Edmund's mother's name, for young women studying finance who've overcome family trauma. Donovan smiled. Dad would have liked that. He would have. The ferry crossed the water slowly, morning light catching the waves. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing to build something new from the ruins. The trust was secure, new protections in place. No single person could ever steal from it again. The company was thriving, best numbers in 5 years and growing. Bethany was in federal prison where she belonged, 15 years. Justice served even if it wasn't perfect, and my son had come home. That was enough. That was victory. Not the victory I'd imagined, but the one I needed. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is refusing to give up on the people you love, even when they've given up on you. Every Mother's Day since the confrontation has held new meaning, not about brunch invitations or social performance, about quiet mornings at cemeteries, about honest conversations over coffee, about family rebuilt on truth instead of lies. Donovan and I have weekly dinners now. He's learning the business, earning back trust, building his own life separate from Bethany's manipulation. Some weeks are harder than others. Therapy doesn't fix everything instantly, but we're moving forward together. That's what matters. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed Ruth's story of justice and redemption, please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next one. Drop your country flag and location in the comments. I'd love to know where you're watching from. And if you're still not subscribed, seriously, what's stopping you? Your feedback means a lot and helps me improve every story. Until next time, remember, patience and truth are more powerful than any manipulation.